Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Inga Cotton, and I'm the founder and executive director of San Antonio Charter Moms. And today we're having kind of a special edition of Charter Moms Chats because this is the community meeting, sort of virtual public community meeting for S.H. James Preparatory Academy, which is a proposed new charter school for San Antonio, targeting the 78210 zip code. And so to have our community meeting, we have Anthony Gordon, who's the founder of S.H. James Prep. And Anthony, I'm so happy that you're here. So I've known Anthony for a couple of years now. He is a experienced educator, teacher, school leader, consultant. He's also a poetry slam expert. He's got many talents. He ran an entrepreneurship camp that my daughter was a part of, and it really helped get her re-engaged and excited after being kind of disconnected during the pandemic. So I'm really grateful to Anthony for that, and I'm so excited that SHJ's Prep is moving forward through the Generation 27 charter application process in Texas. So Anthony, I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And, we really appreciate you, Inga, and everything that SA Charter Moms does for education overall. So, excited to be here to share more information with the community.
Yeah. So I want to just sort of a housekeeping thing. I want to let folks know that we welcome, this is meant to be a conversation. So it's going to be me asking Anthony questions about, the school model and what impact he wants to have on education in San Antonio. But we also want the viewers on Facebook and on YouTube to comment, and I can share those on screen. Anthony can address them because this is meant to be, this is it's a public school, right? And so we want the public to be involved, and we want to hear from the community. And Anthony's been working really hard to tune in and listen to what folks in the community want. But having this public platform is part of that process. So please ask questions, share your comments, and we can bring those on screen as part of the conversation. So, okay, so Anthony, you ready to jump in?
Let's dive in.
Okay, great. Okay, so I want to ask you, why did you choose to open a new charter school to be SH James Prep?
Well, first, good evening to everybody tuning in. Thank you for being here. We really appreciate any opportunity to engage with the community and learn more about their needs and how we can bring those to fruition at SH James Prep. As Inga mentioned, my name is Anthony Gordon. I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan, but I was doing the math preparing for this, and I realized I've been here almost 20 years now, which is crazy to me. But definitely, I guess what you could say, a veteran Texan at this point. My mother was born and raised on the east side of San Antonio, and my grandfather, who the school will be named after, Reverend S.H. James, was a pastor on the east side, and he also was the first Black city councilman for the city of Detroit. I've been an educator for 14 years now throughout the state of Texas, as Inga mentioned, starting out as a classroom teacher, teaching ELA and social studies to third and fourth graders until now, where I've been a school leader and currently do consulting work in education, working with districts around the country to help them build out their programming in different areas, as well as planning to launch SH James Preparatory Academy. I wanted to open a school mostly because of my own experience as a student and as well as my time working in classrooms. Time after time, I've seen what can happen when like-minded individuals come together to provide better opportunities for our young people. And, I want to continue to do that work and continue to be on the right side of history as it relates to that, and to provide that hope for students who attend James Prep to create the futures and communities that they want to see for themselves and their families. So, a lot of why we chose to start this mission with SH James Prep is grounded in that, and grounded in the reality that a lot of us have faced academically, no matter where you went to school, right? We exist in a space right now where we haven't seen a great deal of major overhauls in the way school works since our parents went to school. And looking at the recent realities, especially going through the pandemic and virtual learning and all of the things that went along with that, it really shined a light on some of the shifts and changes that are necessary for us as we move forward and prepare students for problems that we don't even know exist yet. So really building a space and an opportunity for students to really grow in ways that's gonna really be a launching pad for them long term.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Ithi. I think that that's an important thing to remember is that like charter schools are meant to be innovative, and you're presenting something that's new and different. So I want to ask you like kind of a nuts and bolts question about SH James Prep. So what grade levels would the school serve when it opens, and what grade levels would it serve when it's fully grown up?
Good question. So we'll go through the approval process this year. If we are approved in June of 2022, our campus will open in August of 2023. That first year, we will start with 5th through 7th grade. We're looking at about 225 students total, 75 per grade level for that first year. We would add a grade level each year until we reach capacity at 5th through 12th grade with 800 students.
Okay, well, that's really exciting. It's exciting to watch a new school launch, and those pioneering families who help like establish the culture at a new school. Middle school is a really critical time for kids and for families.
Definitely, yeah, and I love middle school. I spent most of my career in middle school, and I just know the importance of that window, especially with students in our zip code in 78210. It's greatly important that we provide like better opportunities for our students and also give them a vision of the path forward, right? Because I feel like a lot of times that's the disconnect. And it's a disconnect that I heard a lot as a teacher and even as a school leader with students. It's, why are we doing this, right? And I think in middle school more than any other grade band, that's where you get a lot of those questions. But I also feel like that's where the greatest disconnect from what we're doing in classrooms as opposed to what students will be doing long term exists is in those middle school years. So we really want to shift that and give students a lot more agency and just really a clear path forward so that they can be more engaged in the process.
Yeah. Well, that's a great lead into the question I'm really excited to ask, which is I want to know about what is going to be unique about SH James Prep. So I know this is going to be there's a lot to it. There's a lot of unique features. So, but I'm ready. Throw it at us.
All right. So we really want to focus on changing how school works, and I know you've heard me say that a few times, but I really think that in the reality we're going through currently, this has been potentially one of the most tumultuous times that we've seen in education in recent history, right? We see a lot of adults who this has been their career path, choosing other pathways right now for various reasons. I experienced that myself. Again, I've been a teacher for 14 years. I know what that grind looks like, right? I remember many of those long hours and switching hats several times throughout the day and what that meant. And so we want to start there, right? We want to start with our adult culture and making sure that we're creating an environment where individuals see education as a long-term destination and goal and career for themselves. Part of that is rethinking how we create strategies with community organizations and businesses and things of that nature. I mentioned the idea of wearing many hats, right? Our teachers and campus staff members can find themselves wearing anywhere up to 10 hats within the span of a day. And that's on an easy day, right? So we want to make sure that we're creating strategic partnerships that lift some of that burden off of campus-based staff, right? Over this process, over the last 3 years, as we've been building SH James Prep to what it is today, I've had countless conversations with organizations who want to help, who are starving for opportunities to work with students and really provide enrichment or extracurricular activities for students, but there's a barrier between them. On the other side of that barrier, we find campus-based individuals who are having the same issue, right? They're starving for how can we engage the community? How can we get help? At SH James Prep, we want to tear those walls down and really allow our community, organizations, businesses, typical community members, who have skills and interests that they want to share with students that would enrich students' opportunities. We want to bring them in and we want to make them a part of the conversation so we could build frameworks that allow that to happen. A perfect example of this happened this summer, right after our vote in June. One of my good friends and advisory board members, Mr. Jason Mims, was connected with an organization called Qubit by Qubit, which is a computer science organization that introduces students to quantum computing, which is a huge concept and a really big idea that's coming over the horizon. Is really been gaining steam lately, as quantum computing is going to be the next level of computing that we see in the technology realm. It's a conversation, but it's a conversation that isn't really being had at a very deep level, right? Well, Qubit by Qubit was looking for opportunities to engage with students on the east side in San Antonio to introduce them to this concept and introduce them to coursework and programming related to quantum computing. So they came in, they built a computer lab at a local community center, had everything set up. They built a relationship with MIT's PhD program to have students from the east side attend a 4-week summer camp hosted by MIT PhDs, had it all set up, and they couldn't get connected with students because we had the COVID restrictions going on, so they couldn't get into school buildings. So here's this brilliant, beautiful opportunity for students who would never be having this conversation to be not only pulled into the conversation, but to be having the conversation with some of the most qualified people to talk about it in the world. But we couldn't get students in seats. So from there, Qubit by Qubit was connected with Mr. Mims, who was there in turn connected with me as a part of our advisory board. And we've been able to push students through this programming. We had one student who Mr. Mims set up to be a part of the programming with MIT over the summer. And Qubit by Qubit created a year-long course that we have 8 students who are a part of right now. And we also have created a prerequisite course for students who may be interested in going into the programming that Qubit by Qubit offers. That is a pilot that we do once a week on Wednesdays with a very small group of students to get them involved in the programming. So this is a perfect example of how we've been able to connect students. So now we have at least 9 students to date from the east side and west side of San Antonio who've been involved in programming related to MIT. Think about how that changes the trajectory of their life, even if they're not interested in necessarily going into quantum computing. So this is kind of the course we want to take, especially as it relates to adult culture and really alleviating some of that stress and burden. Because now, as we launch, we can create an elective course around quantum computing. It's completely virtual with Qubit by Qubit. Now, an instructor is actually teaching one of our students a really high level elective course, and that removes a planning or teaching assignment away from a teacher where they can focus on planning or even spending time with their family on the weekends instead of grading papers, right? So, we really want to build that because we know that adult culture definitely trickles down into our student culture and the services we provide for students. Another way that we're changing how school works is we're really holding on tightly to our unique schedule that we created last year with our Flex Fridays that allow students to continue their design thinking work and really dive into the career work that they want to see for themselves long term. We're also looking at creating non-traditional learning spaces. Part of our community CoDesign this year was partnering with Overland Partners, which is a local architecture firm here in San Antonio. My good friend, Ben Rosas, shout out to Ben. We conducted a community co-design around how we can make our facility conducive to the students that we know will be coming into our building in the 78210. Thinking about students with special needs, thinking about students who would be considered at risk by the state. How can we create a building facility that works to their benefit? Thinking about students with ADHD or who are neurodivergent, right? What are some of the things that we can create and components that we can create within our building that helps them feel comfortable in the learning space, right? Is that having phone booths for students who may need isolation and quiet time to complete work, quiet rooms for students who may be experiencing trauma or need to speak with a counselor, outdoor workspaces, live plants and trees and gardens, multi-purpose spaces for when we need to do small group instruction or want to bring our whole group together to celebrate. So we recently had our first co-design session, and we had a lot of great information come out of it. There was a surprising connection to the idea of plant science and gardening and how important that is for the community as a whole. So that was one thing that really came out and stood out in the conversation we had. But probably the most important piece that I'm really excited about is we're really diving more deeply into the possibilities of the framework of career and technical education programming that has been laid out by the state and the Texas Education Agency. For those of you who are unfamiliar, CTE programming or career and technical education is a set of coursework that's been outlined by the state for students to take in high school, which allows them to get endorsements on their high school diplomas. Students can earn more than one endorsement, but they have to take a certain amount of coursework throughout their time to earn those endorsements on their high school diploma. And there's 5 different categories that students can look into, whether it's computer science, business and entrepreneurship, STEM fields, service industries, things of that nature. But these courses are laid out by the state. One thing that really made us excited to dive into it first was it really fit with the framework of what we built out in our original application as it related to middle school. Another thing that was really exciting to me in digging in was a reality that came to me, and which is part of the rationale of us really diving into this and figuring out ways that we can backwards plan from those CTE frameworks into middle school. And I say that because in order for students to truly access a lot of this CTE coursework at a high level, they may need to take advanced coursework in middle school. This becomes an interesting dynamic for us because we know that we will have a significant amount of students coming in below grade level in different coursework. So in order for them to reach those heights and be able to access that CTE coursework at the highest levels and gain those endorsements, we know we need to accelerate and create really concrete plans for students in middle school. So this is what has me really excited, and I hope has a lot of other people really excited. And an example of that is, if you have a student who may be interested in computer science as a middle school student, but they're below level in math, we may need to accelerate and really provide a really detailed plan for their intervention process to get them to the point where they can catch up and even accelerate in middle school so that they could potentially take algebra as an 8th grader, which opens them up to higher level math coursework in high school, and in turn opens them up to the higher level CTE coursework, which may involve them taking some of the higher level math to really be able to grasp and be successful in the programming. So by creating this ecosystem where we start with students in 5th and 6th grade, giving them career exploration coursework, entrepreneurship and business coursework to give them a better idea of where they want to be long-term, we can really be intentional about what their plan looks like in middle school so that they don't find themselves in a space in high school where they had these dreams and aspirations and they had these careers that they really wanted to dive into, but because we were spending so much time catching up in middle school, we really didn't have an eye on what their needs were for the future. And this also works both ways, right? I don't want to just say this only works for students who may be below level. This also works for our students who are gifted and talented or above level and really looking to be pushed, because now if we see where they want to go and have a clear picture of that as they start middle school, we can actually accelerate their pathways into that CTE coursework and potentially get them started in CTE coursework as 7th and 8th graders, which again opens the door for them and really acts as a launching pad as they go into high school and to college or career beyond high school. I spoke a little bit earlier about qubit by qubit. They're a perfect example of this. In order to participate in the qubit by qubit programming, students need to have taken geometry. So now, if we get students to take their Algebra 1 as eighth graders, Algebra 2 happens in ninth grade, geometry happens in 10th grade, which gives us a full year of extra runway to get students in and out of this programming, which could be hugely beneficial for them long term. So the CTE programming is really um, a strong component and foundation of where we want to build from. And we know that not many charters have really taken this direction. And so, we're excited to potentially be a pilot and a model for how this can work. But we also know that we are not the experts in this. And so we are leaning definitely on people who are experts. We've been working really closely with another good friend of mine, Jim Iestis, who works for CAS Schools and has been a huge part of building out their programming over the last few years. And we really took a deep dive into how they approach CTE and how they really built out their 5 campuses based around different aspects and components of the CTE frameworks. And it really has gone a long way to help us begin to build out our processes. Of course, our main focus last year and always will be entrepreneurship. So we definitely will create a pathway for students revolving around entrepreneurship as it relates to the CTE programming. And of course, with our relationships with Qubit by Qubit and Geekdom and the ton of other tech industries and tech organizations and businesses that are located here locally in San Antonio, it only makes sense to have that as one of our pathways as well. We're also discussing potentially adding a third pathway. Those pathways would be around either communications and multimedia, plant science, which I mentioned earlier, which has come up as a huge topic, or just a more of a liberal arts pathway to give students a well-rounded view. I actually have a liberal arts degree myself, associates, which really helped me shape and frame where I wanted to go and what the trajectory of my career was, because I didn't really know going into college, but hopefully we can alleviate some of that as we build backwards in the middle school. And I really think that this is an important push. I mentioned in the blog that the World Economic Forum stated that just in 5 years, 35% of the skills that are deemed essential for work right now will be obsolete within 5 years. So we really have to pay close attention to how we instruct students and what are the soft skills along with the harder rote skills that we teach students. Some of the skills that the WEF brought up as new skills or skills that will come to the forefront are things like adaptability, flexibility, being tech savvy, creativity, innovation, which goes along with our design thinking principles, data literacy, right? How do you read and analyze data, critical thinking, coding, digital skills, leadership, emotional intelligence, right? If you think about a traditional school or traditional education, these aren't necessarily skills that come to the forefront, right? But we know that we need to make shifts and include these, even if they're included in our core coursework strategically. There are really things that we need to bring out. And I think above all else, going through this process over the last year, as I mentioned, really helped us to tap into many of the resources around the state that are just extremely important and have a depth of knowledge about this information and how to build out this programming. And so, I would really spotlight some of the conversations we've had, especially with our state board members like Tom Maynard, who really has taken an interest in SH James Prep. Even after our interview last year, we've had several conversations just around, the importance of CTE and how we can begin to build our frameworks out. Also would spotlight members like Will Hickman and Lawrence Allen, who we had an amazing conversation with right before the holiday break, who've really been able to help us dive deeper into the frameworks and what's needed to build out these frameworks. and also have given us a ton of practical and experiential learning opportunities to help us build out the frameworks to ensure not only do they meet the standards for our community, but also that they are living up to the standards that the state has laid out for this programming. So we're really excited about it. We're really excited to help to crystallize our model and what we want to see happen at James Prep, and most importantly what we want to see happen for our students and their future.
Yeah, well, you've made a really strong case for why middle school is so important, and that's great. You're drawing on your experience, teaching middle school and leading scholars in that area. What you're talking about laying the groundwork for the career technical education programs by having advanced coursework in middle school, and also recognizing that students may be coming to James Prep with gaps, and that you'll find ways to be flexible and accelerate and get them where they need to be. Or if a student's coming in advanced, like help them go further, and then that unlocks things like the Qubit by Qubit program, so they can, be on that computer science pathway. That's such a compelling vision. And you mentioned about, the community co-design process, and that, wanting a facility that is flexible and that serves students in a different way, and in the facility and then also in the schedule. And I think that's a really important lesson learned from what we've all been through, that doing school the old way might not work anymore.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I think that it really is that it really is that piece that like we can't we aren't going to be able to do things exactly the same anymore, and I don't think we ever will be able to go right. I think there are some shifts in education that we know will be permanent, but I think it also spotlights just what you. And I think that in that we have to be more flexible and adaptable to the needs of students. I feel like we've existed in a space where we've always dictated what learning looks like for the young people who enter our buildings. And while that may have been the best way in the past, looking forward, I feel like we have to have more eye on what do students need to be successful in the space they want to be successful in. And I really want at James Prep us to leave those doors open and leave open the opportunity for students to dream and to build around those dreams. Right. We came from a space where if you mentioned too many times that you wanted to go into a career that wasn't necessarily seen as fruitful, you might have gotten redirected a few times, right? But we want to make sure, if a student comes to me and says, they want to be an athlete or a musician, I don't want to be the person that tells them that's 1% of people who we know that's a reality, but we also need to understand that how demoralizing that could be for young people, right?
Yeah.
So the conversation shouldn't be don't do that. It should be here are options, right? You're interested in the music industry. That's amazing. Let me show you all of the careers that are potentially connected to the music industry, right? You can be a producer. You can own a record label. You know what I mean? And really opening up those doors and showing people the business side of these industries, because a lot of times we don't get that instruction, and it leaves people who do have dreams of going into those industries ending up in a not very good place, whether they make it or not. So we want to make sure that we are really opening up those doors and giving students opportunities to dream, and really giving them what they need to dream. I knew I was going to be a musician or an athlete, as I mentioned in the blog. You could not tell me different when I was in middle school. But as I grew and really understood, what my skills were, what my talents were, how those skills and talents were being cultivated with some of the enrichment and education that I was receiving, it really crystallized where I wanted to go and set me on a path to being here where I can actually say that I'm living a job and a career that is a passion that I love and enjoy. And I know that not everyone gets to have that opportunity, but we have an opportunity to build that with the students that we have coming to James Prep.
Yeah, yeah, that's so important. You want to validate what they're saying, not by saying, "Oh, sure, everybody can do this," 1 in a million career, but not in the sense of like it's great to aim high, and then
Mhm.
the exploration that you do while getting there might open up vistas that the students, the young people, like they don't necessarily know what's out there. So, but if they have that curiosity, it's going to lead them on a path that to be something they might not have ever imagined, but then that's how they can find their passion, and the
Exactly.
thread that underlies it is the entrepreneurship, right? That's
Exactly.
what connects up all these different pathways. But it's having that entrepreneurial mindset that you can take to all kinds of different careers, and it's what unlocks like the problem solving and trying to be innovative because the world has changed and keeps changing.
Definitely. And it's not
Yeah.
going to stop anytime soon.
No, no, no. So, okay, well, I've got some more nuts and bolts questions I want to ask, but first,
Okay.
before I move on to those, like, is there anything else about the unique features of the school that you wanted to, go into more detail on or highlight on? I guess, I think the partnerships you talked about are really exciting.
Mhm.
And I think that this is, a really great way to support middle schoolers, and then, watch it as the school grows, high schoolers as well.
Yeah, I think it's just that. I think that we want to make sure that we are community school first. And so I think a lot of the work we've done, a lot of the conversations we've had over the last 3.5 years or so since we've been building this thing out have built to this space. And I know a lot of times as the founder, you're the face of the message, if that makes sense. But I really want to really like drill down the depth of community input that we've had in this process. um, we've conducted double-digit community co-design meetings over the last year and a half with individuals sitting down to talk about different components of our school, whether that be what are the graduate aims we want for our students when they leave our campus. What are those skills that we want everyone to have when they leave our campus as seniors. um, we've gotten input on our student behavior management systems and what suspension should look like and how we should deal with students with extreme trauma or behavior issues. We've talked to recent graduates about some of the deficits that they found uh, recently with graduating within 5 years and now being in the professional world. We've talked with students themselves, high school, middle school, elementary school students, to get their input on how they think school should change up until our facilities planning. This is definitely a school that's been built by the people for the people, and we want to continue that process. And we're excited to continue this journey again and have more community input. And we'll definitely talk about how people can get in contact a bit later as it relates to
So I want to share some praise. Monique is
that.
watching. Hello, Monique. She does an awesome job. So and yeah, Monique is fantastic. A little side note: we've featured a Better Chance for Youth features on SA Charter Moms. Because they're doing a great job getting kids connected with colleges, especially the HBCUs they're doing a great job of opening up pathways for kids who might otherwise have gotten discouraged. So great job,
Definitely.
Monique.
Yeah, and definitely one of our partners, and we'll be working very closely with a Better Chance for Youth Futures and my good friend Monique, and getting students connected to HBCUs, which is very important. I attended a HBCU shortly during my college career, and it was amazing. So we definitely want to connect students to opportunities and expose them to opportunities, um, no matter what the genre, because you never know what's going to connect with a kid. And so we want to make sure that we give them as many opportunities to be exposed to as much as possible so that they can make the best decisions for themselves and their families moving forward.
Yeah. So I encourage folks who are watching, leave your comment on, Facebook or YouTube, and I can share it on screen, and Anthony can answer questions. So I want to make sure we cover like the nuts and bolts information, but the comments are open if folks want to ask Anthony some questions. Okay. So, Anthony, I want to ask you about the location that you have in mind. So, what location are you looking at for the proposed school, and why?
Yeah, so our proposed landing space is going to be 78210 in San Antonio. Um, the East Side is hugely important to me. Anyone who's followed the story understands just the background that I have with my family, and then my own personal experience as a teacher and educator on the East Side of San Antonio. Um, it's it's definitely has holds a deep space in my heart, and so it's really important for me to be a part of the educational landscape and community in this community. I think also one thing that we've really found in our research and just in our experience that this area has been neglected. Right, that there still is a huge need for choice for families in this area. Of course, 78210 does fall within SAISD boundaries. I believe SAISD has been doing an amazing job in improving, and some of the things they've done with in-district charters has been amazing, and they've been able to make huge traction in the work they're doing, improving all the way up to a B rating, which is amazing. I salute them. I'm a former SAISD employee myself, so I like to say I was a small part of some of that work, but for the most part, that work hasn't shown in 78210. Right, we still have many schools that are trying to find their way, and we want to be a part of the solution. Right, and in no way am I saying that James Prep is going to come in and change the landscape in 78210 alone. I know that this is a place where we'll definitely have to work with existing districts and charters and other schools in the area to really build a landscape where we can provide better opportunities for students. But I feel like we definitely have a strong plan to go into this community and provide an opportunity for families who may be looking for something different, and may have a bit of forward thought as to the needs of their students, not only currently, but long term as it relates to, where they want them to be in 10, 15, 20 years. So we're excited to be a part of the educational landscape in 78210, and hope to be a very positive contributor for a time to come.
Yeah, there's so much history on the east side of San Antonio, and I hope that's part of what, and I mean, I think, naming the school S.H. James Prep, it reminds people about those deep roots, and how cool that you have that family connection. But it's the story about, the east side stepping up and getting a seat at the table, and
Definitely.
I hope that's a message that the students pick up on as well, that they deserve a seat at the table, and if not in a chair for them, then just bring a chair, right?
That's right. We're bringing our folding chairs if they don't have a seat for us. Definitely.
So okay, so I want to ask you, you mentioned earlier about like having had double digit community meetings, co-design meetings, getting input from the community, and I was wondering if you could highlight some more what are some ways that the input you've gotten from the community could be reflected in the design of the school, but between now and the approval process and when the doors would actually open August 2023.
Yeah, I think it's just refining, right? So we've created this model, which is a very detailed overview of what we want to do at James Prep, but it still is just that, right? We have to bring this to life. And so a lot of what we're doing in the conversations we're having right now is just to refine, right? We know that this is a process where we're going to continually have to iterate and change and shift and even move direction in some cases. But the more forethought we have in working with the community, we can be proactive in some of that and see things coming and not be reactive and really have to adjust on the fly. So I think a lot of the importance in us continuing to connect with the community is just that, right? We want to get as many eyes on this plan, get as many eyes on this model as we can, so that we can continue to trim it and sculpt it and make it something that's really going to have the intended impact. And I think that statement is probably the most powerful statement I can make, because there's no school that goes into a community saying we want to be terrible and not and not service students and not see academic growth, right? So what is the disconnect from the plan that we come in with the follow through and implementation to eventually end goals. We want to do as much as we possibly can to be ahead of the game as it relates to that. So we're always open to having conversations and talking through the fine points of our model, what we want to do, what our intended impact is, so that we can get that input on the front end to make sure that we're as close to right as we can be when we launch in August 2023. So, we definitely welcome input. We're constantly recruiting for our community co-design processes, because we're always looking at different things that we can take out into the community and get input on. So if you're at all interested in having a one-on-one meeting with me to learn more about the model, potentially having a student attend SH James Prep upon our launch, or even being a part of the foundational planning of our campus, please reach out to me. You can email me. You can go to our website to sign up for our newsletter and our mailing list. And I'm excited. I love to talk about education. As Inga will tell you, you will never get me to shut up. So please feel free to reach out, and we're excited to have some of those conversations with you.
Yeah, well, and as I've gotten to know you, you come with so much experience and insight, but you are very humble about wanting to learn and to partner, and so that's one of the things that gives me confidence that when you do get SH James Prep off the ground, that it's going to be a really special place for the students and for the teachers who are going to work there. So I've got it up on the screen. And so agordon@shjamesprep.org. That's Anthony's email. And then I'm gonna put the social media handles up here. So actually this is on Facebook. It's SH James Prep. So facebook.com/SH James Prep. And then on Instagram and on Twitter. But there's lots of good stuff on Instagram. So it's @SH_James Prep. Is the Instagram handle. So, and all that good stuff is also in the blog post. So I'm going to plug that again. There's a link to it in the description of the video. So that's probably the easiest way to get to the blog post, but it's also the top most recent post on sachartermoms.com, which is that's our blog for San Antonio Charter Moms. And then definitely y'all sign up for Anthony's email updates and things like that. And there's seems like I'm getting notices all the time. There's different meetings and stuff happening. Lots of great conversations. Lots of opportunities for people to learn from each other and listen to what's happening in the community. And it's not just the adults talking. It's students sharing and alumni sharing their ideas as well.
Definitely, we love to incorporate the student voice, right? I think that is the most important thing that adults have to consider, especially going into education, is we have to really give elevate student voice, right? Because we're not giving students voices. They have voices and they have a lot to say, but we finding those ways and those spaces to elevate student voice and really have them be a part of the conversation is extremely eye-opening. So I encourage everyone, even if you're not in education, just take some time, sit down with a kid and just talk to them, and you'll really learn a lot. And so we're excited to have that voice be very prominent at SH James Prep.
Yeah. Well, Anthony, I'm just gonna, for anyone who's joined us late, I'm just gonna kind of recap some of the high points of what we talked about. So the idea is that so the school, it's proposed new charter school called SH James Preparatory Academy. The plan is to open in 78210, which is on the east side of San Antonio, Texas. When it first opens, it would serve grades 5 through 7. And that's, so the way the process works, June 2022 is when the approval will hopefully happen. And then August 2023 is when it would open. So grades 5 through 7, then each year adding another year until it's built out at 5 through 12. And, you talked about what's unique about the school, that you want to change how school works. And that includes the environment for the teachers by, bringing in new ideas and extra hands, by having these strategic partnerships like the Qubit by Qubit, quantum computing, computer science program, which is, that's a great opportunity. And that's an example of, you tapping into the know-how and connections of the advisory board, Jason Mims, who's just an outstanding community leader and is full of ideas and full of energy and, just needs students to get involved in this, learning quantum computing from MIT experts. and that is also an example of the, career technical education aspect, right? You want students to, unlock pathways like computer science or entrepreneurship, potential other additional pathways, and even if that involves putting in the extra work when they're in middle school to get them caught up so that they can take advanced coursework in high school, and that then they can experience things like Cube by Qubit, and they can get out of high school with endorsements on their diploma, and having being able to get their hands dirty on some stuff, and have more of an idea of what they want to do after college, so they can have, or after high school, so they can have these lofty goals, and and real conversations about what steps it takes to get there.
Yeah. And I think it also on our end, it gives us the opportunity to really intentionally create programming, right? Because now we have a clearer idea of students in middle school and what their aspirations are. Along with that advanced coursework, we can, provide experiential learning opportunities, internships, summer work programs, things of that nature that give students not only the skill that they've learned in their classroom, but it gives them that hands-on experience, which we know means the world, right? When you can lay down a resume on someone's desk that not only has the educational background but also the experience, you're putting yourself in another category, and we want to make sure that our students have access to that.
Yeah, and what a great way to address the situation that the kids are in now, because I felt it as an adult, but I had over 40 years of living before COVID happened, but for kids who had just barely started their lives, and then COVID happened and it shut all these doors to them, and
yes.
they're trying to, middle school are trying to figure out what's going on in the world, and they're doing things through online means, but it's not the same, and
Yes.
it affects how they see themselves, it affects what they think is possible in the world, and it's so important to just expand the horizons, and get them excited about what the possibilities are there, not discouraged, but just feel like that there's a whole big world for them, and that they deserve their seat at the table too.
Definitely do. They definitely do.
Okay. Well, great. Well, Anthony, this has been, I think a strong community meeting to where we've been able to communicate, what you're trying to build at SH James Prep. So I put the website link up on the screen again, so shjamesprep.org. So I encourage everyone who's viewing, check out their website, stay connected, get in touch with Anthony. Check out the link in the description, takes you to the blog post that Anthony wrote that we're featuring on SA Charter Moms today. And I just, best wishes through the application process.
Thank you. I appreciate it as always. Inga, you are a tremendous supporter of education, and I want to take a moment to give you your flowers, because we all appreciate and love you, and I can't tell you how many spaces I've been in where I'm up, and so it's great to have someone who's a champion for education as a whole, and just making sure that students land in a place that's conducive for them to learn and be successful. So we all thank you, and we all appreciate you, and I just wanted to share that. So
thank you, Anthony. I really appreciate that. Yeah, we want every kid, every family to find that school that's the right fit. And so when new high quality options can open up in San Antonio, especially wanting to go to an area that's been historically underserved, that's really exciting to me, and I'm super proud to have a role to play to help spread the word. And like you said, you get to do work you're passionate about. I get to do work every day that I'm passionate about. So, and that's what we want for kids too, is to
definitely
find what they're meant to be, and open those doors for them.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, great. Thanks, Anthony, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.
All right. Thank you, Inga. Thank you, everybody, for joining.
All right. Take care.